Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to make a very quick and basic workflow in N8N, which will allow you to basically have a conversation or chat to your website using a VectorDB and Supabase. And what this will allow you to do is use that information to then take that and use it for things like marketing if you want, and getting things like avatars, which is what I use it for, and getting an understanding of a business or a service using the information that's saved into the DB. So instead of just like using ChatGPT directly, for example, you can use this system and it's using the information that you've got in your DB saved to make it a lot more accurate. I've used it for things like market research on specific competitors. You can also use it to do things like write ad copy, which is something I want to show later on, by using the foundation here and then taking that to then add additional functions onto it where I can then write out ad copy very quickly. Like I said, you can do competitor research or even just research on your own business or website, as long as all the information is saved on that. So again, it's a very basic first stage N8N flow, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do in this video. All right, so here we are in N8N, and just before I show you how to build this workflow out yourself, I just want to explain what it actually does for a start and how it works. The reason I want to show you these two things is just so you know what it does, obviously, and also so you can see how you can use this for your own use case, rather than just looking at these videos and wondering, why is this even useful? So in my case, what I use something like this for is for different things like market research. For example, if I'm working with specific brands, you can also use it for copywriting. If you run like Facebook ads or Google ads, you can easily take your information from your website as long as it's got the information on it, either yours or a competitor's in this case. You can take that information and you can write ads, copywriting, or even about us sections, frequently asked questions. You can get it to use its AI ability on your specific knowledge, which is the key part here, which is why we're doing all this, is using your specific data. And how does it does that? It uses a RAG system and a vector database. And I know that's very complicated to some people and they've never heard of that. So let me just explain to you what that does and how that works as well, using a website here that I found that will do it a lot better than I can explain. So if we jump over here, we will see Retrieval-Augmented Generation RAG integrates external information. So in this case, we're taking our website retrieval into the process of generating responses by large language models. So instead of just using ChatGPT, for example, and using the information that's already that's already learned on from a specific date. So you usually see this cutoff dates for these models. What we can do is we can give it the information in our DB, again, which is the website that we're uploading from the different pages. And then it will use that information and it will give you a lot better responses and a lot more relevant responses. So it says here, it searches a database for information beyond its pre-trained knowledge base, exactly what I mentioned, and it's significantly improving the accuracy and relevance of the generated responses. So very, very good. You can obviously try going direct with the models, but the information you'll get is very outdated. And with this, you can just keep feeding it new information. Maybe you've got new landing pages, new products, whatever. You can just upload it into this and then chat to it using Slack, Telegram, or in this case, I'm just using the integrated chat window on N8N just to show you it working. There's also like a diagram here which just shows you, so this is the question that you put in and the chat system that you're using. It will then go to your knowledge base, which is a database. It will look for that relevant knowledge. It will then send that to LLM, and then it will give you an answer using that information. So again, very, very simple. So we'll jump back to N8N and show you that. So we've got this broke up into different sections at the moment. So we've got the input. Then we're using Firecrawl, which you might have heard of. Firecrawl is a scraper. You can use any one you want. There's things like Apify. There's also different web scrapers that you can use similar to Firecrawl. You can also build your own, maybe using some sort of package or something like that. There's lots of cool videos of other people building their own web scrapers and stuff on YouTube. This is just a very, very basic setup of this, and it can be built on later for specific needs. Maybe, for example, you wanted to do a copywriting bot. You could use this and take the information from your website or location and make it really, really relevant to whatever it is that you're selling or running online. So we've got the input. Again, we're just using a form. It will then take that URL that you put in the input. It will then scrape all of the different paths on that web page. So it will take all of the paths and pages on your website, and it will list them here. We then use code here. And what that code will do is it will then take each one of those paths with your main domain, and it will put it into a new form so that you can select whichever pages it is you want to upload onto the DB, because maybe you don't want to put your whole website on here. It's a lot of information, and you might also have a lot of irrelevant information, which I've definitely seen before where people have got old products on there, old blog posts, everything. You just don't want to take all of that stuff. So that's something that you can do on this. You just select the pages. And again, I'll show you that in a second. Once it's got the pages that you select, it will then scrape those individual pages using Firecrawl. So we're just doing another HTTP request here. If I zoom in a little bit, it might be better. I then put a wait on here, and I'll show you why we've put this. And then another HTTP request. Again, I'll show you why we put this, but this is just part of the Firecrawl system. We then split the data up just because the response we get from Firecrawl, which is the scrape, is just too much information. All I want is markdown information because that's where all the meat is and all the relevant information that we need. And then we run it through this vector Supabase store. And what that will do is it will take your information, it will embed it, and then it will load it onto Supabase into a table. Up the top here, we've just got the chatbot. So we'll just use this to talk to the DB. I'll show you this at the end of the video, just show it working and show you how we can use the information. And then over here, we've got the initial DB setup. So that's where we click this once and it will create the tables and stuff on Supabase for us just to make it super simple. I'll show you that as well. So now that you've kind of got a brief explanation of what this does and how it works, let me now actually give you an example before we then build it at the end. Just again, so you can see it working and get a better idea and vision of how this can be useful for you. Okay, so let's show you this working. And I found a brand online. I don't know this brand. I've never heard of them. Let me jump over to them. They're called Zarbee's here. And it looks like they do like wellness products for mainly kids by the looks of it, but they've definitely got some adult stuff in here as well. And how we're going to do this is for this one, you're just going to take the main homepage URL. In this case, I've got products open, but if you just go to the main homepage, which is this one, and just copy this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to test the workflow just to show you that it's working here. And I'll run you through each step while it's doing it. So you test the workflow. And then what we're going to do is just paste in the URL for either your website, a competitor's website. Now, some people will not allow scraping on their website, so just be careful with this and make sure you're not doing anything illegal. But in this case, we'll use this one. So click submit. And what this is doing, if I jump back, it's running through the first steps here. So it's doing a Firecrawl request. And what it's doing is it's getting the sitemap and basically getting all the paths on that main URL. And then it's separating them to put it into a new form. So if I jump back over to here, you'll see now the form is updated and it's gave us all of the URLs and paths within that main homepage path. Now, there is quite a lot here. And what you can do is if you want, you can mess around with the request or the API call to Firecrawl and you can edit things out that you don't need. So maybe you don't need like blogs and stuff in here, but just for the case of this tutorial, I'm just showing you everything. I'm keeping it as basic and straight to the point as possible here, just so you can see how useful this can be. And then what you want to do is choose the pages that you want with the relevant information. Now, you can, if it's your website, you will know this, but you might want to just have a look through the competitor's website or the person's website that you're doing this for just to get the information that you need. So obviously the homepage would be one. So we'll just select these homepages here. I think products would be a good one as well, just because products will have a list of all the things that they're selling on there. If we then jump back, let's have a look. They've got like wellness solutions for all ages. They've got top picks here. And then they've got like this kids cough. They've also got products by age, products by type. So if I click on these, I can find what I'm looking for. So let's say we wanted vitamins and supplements. We could literally just copy this page, jump back, Control F, and then paste it in. And then you'll see you can get this one. So whatever you really want here or whatever you think's good to have. Our story is a good one. Maybe terms and conditions, contact us. Anything that you think would be good, let's just have a look through. Another one which is usually good is collections pages if you're doing something like e-commerce. It doesn't look like they've got any collections. Usually e-commerce sites have got like collection pages with different products on there, things like that. So they've got products, kids, we can put that in there. Products, babies, adults, just choose whatever it is that you want. I recommend you don't go too crazy to start with, because you don't want to overload the API call. So maybe we just take these off and these off just now, and we'll just choose these ones. So what you do is, once you've selected the pages that you want, click submit. And then what it's going to do is now it's going to crawl each one of those individual pages. So I've put a weight in here, as you can see. Now, the reason why I've put a weight in is the way that Firecrawl works here is you send the API call with all of the pages that you listed, and it will do that on the back end. So it's working on that task at the moment. And what it does is, in the response that Firecrawl gives you, if I click on this, it gives you a URL here. And this URL is the task. And when you do another GET request to this URL, that will give you all of the information that you've requested to scrape. So from all of these pages over on the left-hand side here, this will provide you all the pages. Now, I've put a 1 minute wait on. It might not be enough in this case. You might want to put longer depending on how many pages that you're scraping. You can also do a loop as well so that it constantly checks. And you can also do the same on a HTTP request, where you get it to loop over and do the request multiple times. So the next one that it does is GET request to the URL that I mentioned. So you can see here, this is the URL on this side, and it does a GET request to that. And now it's got all of the information. So you can see all of those pages that we scraped. It's got all of the markdown and everything else in there. Now, all we're doing here is we're splitting out the data. I'll show you this in more detail when we build it, but what we're doing is we're just getting the markdown information, because that's all we really want. We don't want all of the other fields on the object, just the markdown. Same thing, just splitting it out again, just so we can get the markdown. And then from that, what it does is it pushes it to the vector database in Supabase. Again, when we're building this out, you're going to see it in more detail how to actually do this and how it works. From that, it then embeds each part of the information into chunks and then saves it onto the DB. So then that will now be saved in the Supabase database. And if I jump over to Supabase and go to the database here, this is the tables. You'll see the documents here. This has got the information saved in a VectorDB here. You can see that it's vector because it's got this embedding part. And this is all the vector numbers here with the information, which is the metadata and the content. So if I jump back, that is now complete. So because that's complete, what we can do is now chat to it. So let's just quickly see this in action if I chat to it. So what you can do is click over here, click on chat, and then open up the chat window. And now it will open up the box here. If you wanted, you could change this to Slack, whatever it is you want, and test it that way. But just for the sake of this, I'm just going to test it. So I just want to say, hey, can you tell me about the brand in my DB? So let's just send that. Now this chat will work through, it's got an AI agent here. It's running it through the different models. I'll show you this more specific when we're building it, just so you can see the different models and stuff that I've got. And what it's going to do is going to provide you the information to your question. And it's a lot more relevant, right? Because it's using your actual website information. So we'll see that in a second. Okay, so here we go. We've got like this about section, which is really cool. Let's say, for example, you're working with clients and you don't know anything about them, right? You run them quickly through this, and now you're getting a whole product research or business research done for them very, very quickly. You could put all their best sellers in there, the about us, homepage, products, everything. And now you're getting some really, really relevant information quick as well. So it says Dr. Zach Zarbach, honey-based children's cough syrup. So it's got products and things like that. Products are available online. So it's got some stuff there. Science-backed, nature-backed by science and products and things. You could also ask it, what sort of products do they sell? Again, depending on what pages you put in it here, it's going to give you different responses. It might actually give you some bad responses depending on what you do. But let's see what it does here. So it's doing its thing on the agent here. All right, so you've got some of the stuff it does here: cough and throat relief, immune support, sleep aids, digestive health, hydration. So really, really cool. And then you could actually write, what, can you tell me about the target market for these products? Now it's going to tell us about this. And then from this, you can build and build and build. So now, for example, you could say, can you give me avatar examples with detailed explanations about their lives? That goes towards marketing, which is sometimes things that I like to try. You can also get it to write ad copy and stuff. So here you go. Zarbase targets a diverse market focused primarily on families and health conscious consumers. So parents and families. So very cool. And then I'm going to just ask it one last thing. Can you create 3 avatars I can use when marketing for this brand? I don't know what this is going to do, but let's just quickly check it. But you can obviously get an idea of how useful this would be for the different things that you want to use it for. All right, so here you go. So we've got health conscious mum, Emily Thompson, age 34, family, avatar, new dad, tech sav. There you go. So there's some really cool stuff there. I won't go into showing you any more examples just because I think you get the idea. So now that you've seen this working, you've seen how useful it can be, you can also continue to add more information. You just run it again, choose the pages that you want, and then re-upload that and keep going. You could also expand on this. You could make it delete old information that you've already scraped and then re-upload them. Just add like these little tweaks in. You can do all these different things. You can add on extensions to this, so you could use it for specific things like maybe copywriting. You could also get it to actually make the whole flow where it makes like a whole profile, which is something I've been trying to build, and do something like that where it makes a whole marketing profile. There's so many use cases of this, and it's so useful in my opinion. So now that you know how it works and you've seen it in action, let me show you how you can build this for yourself very quickly. Okay, so here we are in a fresh N8N workflow, and the first thing we want to do is just add in a Postgres node, and we want to go down and click on execute an SQL query. So if we just click that, you'll see we've got that in here at the moment, and I'm just going to remove that, put that over here. And what this one does is just creates the tables and the functions needed to create this vector database in Supabase. So if I jump back over to the flow here, you just see this is sitting on its own. So we've got this. Now, in order to get the Postgres SQL information, Supabase has actually gave us this here. So initializing your database, all you do is copy all of this. So copy this, come back over, and then paste the query in here. And for this to work, you also have to connect to your database. So I'll show you quickly how to do that because it can become confusing. I've already done it here, as you can see. But what you would do is click on add. In your case, I'm just going to show you edit here. And you want to put this information in. Now, some of this stuff is already here. So I'll show you where to get this. So if you jump over to your Supabase DB, up the top section here, there is connect. You want to go down to transaction pooler. The first thing you want to look for is the AWS section here. It starts with AWS and it will finish on .com. So if you go copy that, take it back over and just paste it in there. Next, that will be in here, Postgres. And then for the username, you'll see it's got this here, postgres.uh. If I come over here, it's also in here, this section here, just before your password. Copy that and paste that in, then put in your DB password, and then all of this will be the same apart from the end. The port, what you want to do is just copy that as well. This will be empty. Copy the port from your DB here, and it's this one at the end. So that's it. You put that in, and then that will connect to the DB, hopefully. And then you'll just click connect, and then it will say this at the top, connection tested successfully. And that's all you want to do. So that's the first step. Now you only need to run this part once, and what that does is if I jump out and go to here, it will create the tables in here. It will create this documents table, and it will have content, metadata, and embedding an ID here. It will do that automatically for you. It'll also create a function on the back end, which is this part here. Create a function to search for your documents, create the table, and it'll also enable the PG vector extension to work. That's the first step. Very, very simple. Run that once. Just click that and then click run. Okay, so the next part we're going to tackle is the input. So for the input, what we want to do is get a form submission. So very, very simple. Just click add node, click form, and then click N8N form, add that in. Now what you want to do is just give it a title. So we're just going to give it example here, example. And then we only want one input. So the field name is going to be URL, and this is the main URL for your website or a competitor's website. Click text, and then that's it. Click test step, and then you'll see you've got this working, and that is good to go as well. So I'm just going to type www.google.com. Submit. Once it goes, you will see you'll get the URL submitted at format test, and that's good to go. So that's the first one. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, next we're going to add in the HTTP request so that we can get a sitemap using Firecrawl. So you'll have to create an account for Firecrawl if you've not already done that. They've got a free plan. I'm on the paid plan, and you can get different amounts of scrapes and website pages per different plans that you get, right? So I'm not going to show you that, but you need to create an account on Firecrawl to get your API key. So first, let's just add in a node. We'll go HTTP, and then we're going to take this and we're going to jump over to Firecrawl, and you can see the API key here. So this is what you will need in order to make the calls to get the sitemap on whatever URL you give it. If I jump to the documents here, and then we go to map, you will see it gives an example of the crawl. So what you give it is content type, application JSON, authorization, bearer, and then your API key. And then you give it a URL. That's the URL that you want to get the sitemap for, or scrape if you're using the scrape endpoint, which is the one over here. In this case, we're using this. And what something you can do in N8N is you can actually just copy the curl here. So if you copy this, jump over, import, and then just paste it in, which is really, really useful actually. Click import. It will now create that HTTP request for you. And what you need to do is create your authentication. Now, I tried putting the API key here, but for some reason it never worked. And then I figured out what you can do, just looking through YouTube and reading through the docs, is you can create an authentication here using headers, because this is header authentication for the API key situation here. So what we want to do is go to generic credentials, then go to header. I've already created Firecrawl, right? So, but what I'll show you inside of here is how you do this for yourself. All you do is put in the name, authorization, and then paste in your key. Then you save that. And once you save that, it will show you here. Now you can use that on all of your API calls that you do to Firecrawl in the future. That means you no longer need to send the headers, right? If you scroll down, you'll see just by copying and pasting in that curl from the Firecrawl docs, you'll now see that it's added in the body parameters, which is the URL, and then the value here. Now the value has to be the expression from the previous step, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But let me just close that and connect the two of them. I'll click in. Now you'll see that you can take the URL from here. So what you want to do is just delete that and then pull that over and drop it in there. Now that URL is connected to this HTTP request. Now obviously Google will not allow me to do a Firecrawl API call on it, so we'll need to change that in a section to something else. But for now, we'll just leave that as is, and that is it for this step. So just make sure you do that header auth correctly, and it will always show here. You just choose these steps, and you should be good to go. So the next step, if we jump back over to our flow, is we want to do this code step, and I'm just going to copy this just so I don't have to write it out again. But what this is doing is it's just allowing you to create fields on the next form step, which is where you can select the URLs on the form. It doesn't, if someone knows how to do this better than the way that I'm doing it, please let me know in the comments, because this took me some time to figure out. So it's taking the URLs from the previous request, the sitemap request, and then it's splitting them up and then putting them as options into the form. So we'll jump back. All we do is type in code. Once you type in code, just delete this and paste that in there, and that's it. You don't need to do anything else. I'm not going to run that at the moment. Next, we want to do another form. If I jump back over, same thing. I'll just show you what's inside of here. You want to select this because what that's doing is taking the field options from the previous step again. So if I jump over here, type form, then we'll do next form page. And what I'm going to do is change this so that use fields, use JSON, delete this off, and then paste this new one in. Okay, now we've not got the input data yet, but what we'll be doing is taking this from the previous step, which I'll show you in a second. So now we've got this first stage set up, just the exact same here, which is the input. Next, we're going to be doing the Firecrawl side, but let's just test this now, and we can show that this step is working. So click Test Workflow. It will open up the first part of the form. Just paste in the URL that you want to run this on. I'm just taking the same one as the example I showed. Click Submit. It should then get the sitemap for this, like I explained, and then it will jump onto the next stage of the form when it's separated out all of those URLs and paths from the sitemap. Now, on this one thing you will notice is there's lots of these URLs, and you can refine this in your API call. So just quickly to show you, if I jump over to the first one here, and I go to the HTTP request, one thing I've included is sitemap only and included subdomains. This is in Firecrawl's documents. And what this will do is it will filter out the URLs from the map call that it gives you, and it will only give you what you asked for, which in this case I've asked for sitemap only and included subdomains. So you don't get all of those domains with all of the long URL strings on the end. You can also filter this down further if you want. Like maybe you don't want pages that have got the word blog in it, etc. You can really customize it a lot using Firecrawl, but I'll just show you that for now. So if you want to filter that, you can in your own. And now that's completed. So it ran through the form, it got the sitemap, it then separated everything up, and it put them in the form there. And now it should have the selected pages here. I've not selected any, so if I just choose the top 3 here, or 4, click Submit, form submitted, and now we will have these ready to go in the next stage. Now obviously these are not too relevant, you want to choose relevant things, but I just wanted to show you that stage working. So now we've done that, let's move on to the next stage. So for the next stage, I'm going to copy the nodes over because you already know how to do the main parts, which is copy the curl call from Firecrawl and also put in your credentials, like your API key and stuff like that. So it's quite self-explanatory, so I don't think I need to over-explain here. So I'm just going to copy this and quickly run over it, and then I'm just going to paste it in. So that's the first one, which is another HTTP request. The next one is just a wait, which I'll explain in a second. Copy it, and then paste that over as well, connect it in. And the next one is a second HTTP request, which I'll show you why in a second. Paste that in as well. Okay, so if I show you what these do now, so the first one, again, I've just copied the curl from Firecrawl, and this one is just a batch scrape in this case. So you're giving it a list of URLs, which is the ones that we gave it from before. And all we are doing is exact same as before, generic credentials, header of Firecrawl, which is the one that's already set up, turning off the headers, and then this will give us the JSON body here, which we want to do. So the URLs, which is this part here, so you see JSON stringify, multi-select, and this is basically taking the array over here and putting it in as an array in this API call. The formats we want is Markdown. You can also get other things like HTML and stuff if you want, but that's all we need, and this shows you what it is. So URLs, and then it gives you this array, which is these brackets here, with each one of the domains or paths that we chose on the previous step. So very simple. Once you've done that, and what this is going to do is now scrape each one of these pages using the endpoint that does it in batches. And what this endpoint returns is it returns another URL from Firecrawl. And that's the task that Firecrawl is doing on the back end. So that we're not sitting waiting on this, is doing that, and it's allowing that to happen while we can do something else if we wanted. And then I've put a wait on here. So I've just put 1 minute at the moment. Obviously, depending on how big of a scrape that you're doing or a big of a batch of URLs that you're doing, you might want to put longer. You can also put a loop in here if you want, so that it keeps looping back on itself to check. There's hundreds of ways you can do this, but I just put a wait for the purpose of this to keep it simple and quick. Now, if I test this, let me show you what it does. You'll see it gives us this success true, and now it gives us the next URL, and this is where all of the information from these pages being scraped will get put into in that task. And when we make a GET request to this, which is the next step of the workflow, then we get all that information back. So that's this one. All we're doing is taking from the step here. It's obviously running a wait at the moment, so it's going to be 1 minute. And when that wait is done, you will then go back into the HTTP request here, and you will see that the URL for the batch is in this stage here in the input. And then you just take that, drag it in, and put it in the URL section here into the get method. And the same thing, all you're doing is taking the authentication, take your Firecrawl one that you already made, and then when you click that test step, you will see that now it gives you back all the information that we have crawled from the website. Okay, so that's that stage done. Now we're going to quickly build out the rest of this in the last part here. Okay, for the last part here, I've jumped ahead a little bit. I've put in a couple of split out nodes here, and I'll just show you what these do with the HTTP request from before. So the first one, all I'm doing is dragging over the data array here from the actual response from Firecrawl with all of the data. So just drag out that array and put it in here. So that's the first one. And what this will do is put an output of the markdown and all the information in the array, because that's all I want. I don't want these other fields going to my VectorDB because it's all irrelevant information. I want to keep it as relevant as possible so that when I'm querying it, we're getting good information back. So that's the first thing. The next thing is I don't want a lot of this other information as well. So we do another split out again. And if there's another way that people know how to do this, please let me know. I'd love to know, but this is the way that I've done it in here, and it seems to work at the moment. But if there's a faster, more efficient way, I would love to know. So the next one is the exact same thing. All I'm doing is taking the data from the previous split out, dragging the markdown in this time. So just literally drag that over to there, and it populates it like that. And then what I've done is selected other fields to include, and I've just included the original URL as a metadata. You can put whatever you want in there. And then when you test this, it outputs this. So now you just get an array with markdown. There's no more irrelevant fields, which is stuff that could potentially just water down the actual database and make the information not very relevant as well. So now you've got all the markdown. And then you've got that metadata for each one of those URLs. So that's that step. And the last part here is we're going to just do the VectorDB part. So let's quickly do that. If we jump over to the initial one, what we start with is a Supabase vector store. So I'll come over here, click this, and then type in Supabase, click vector store. And then what you want to do is add document to vector store. Now, you want to connect your Supabase account, exact same as before. All you do is connect it, follow the steps. The only difference between this one is you go to your settings and API, and then you will get the host name from the settings part and inside of the API settings. And then you get your service role secret. So just copy and paste them in there and then connect it. And then you can use that account for future Supabase calls. The operation mode is insert documents, and then we want to choose the list. So you'll see your documents list here, which is the one that we set up when we ran the initial SQL query at the very start of the video. Now what you can do is you can test this step. So once everything's good, just before you test this step, you want to connect to other parts. So I'm jumping ahead of myself there. You want to add the embedding model. Click this and choose whatever embedding you want. I would recommend just going with the OpenAI one, which is this one here, text embedding 3 small. So you've connected that. And then the document, what you want to do is just go default data loader, JSON, load all input data, and you can also select this metadata part if you want, and add extra stuff in if you want. I'm not going to do it in this case, and just keep that as is. And then the next part is text splitter. So I would recommend, you can choose any of these, but different models will have different input token amounts. So I like to just choose token and go with 1000. I'm sure all of them work well. And that's where we're currently at now. So I believe that is everything we have to do here. Let's just double check. Documents, embedding batch size is 200. Settings is all good here. Parameters is good. Embedding model is good. Default loader, load inputs, JSON, settings. Yep. And the last one, token splitter. Okay, so now what that will do, if we test this stage, just let's check the split out. We've got the markdown here. I'll jump back over to here. Just make sure you've cleared out your database if you're testing this. So this is the same as before. I've just deleted all of the vector stuff from before. Jump back and then we can test this. So let's see if it actually works, and it will start doing its thing and updating the database. So if I jump back over to the database, documents, refresh, we can see that we've got the information here from those pages. Obviously, this is not the whole website, but now that we've done, we can now query this with the chat module of choice. So in this case, I will just quickly show you how to build out the last part so you can start talking to this. I know this has been an extremely long video and you could probably shorten this down a lot, but I just want to be as detailed as possible because I see a lot of videos on YouTube and sometimes it's very hard to follow them because they're quickly running through things. So let's jump over to the last part here and we will build out the chatbot here just so you've got it if you want to use it. But again, you can connect this to anything, like maybe Slack or Telegram, whatever you want. But in this case, we're just going to do the internal chatbot. So let's jump over to build that now. All right, we're in the home stretch. Let's build out the chatbot and last part of this. So the first thing we want to do is just get the chat node. So same thing, click over here and just type in chat trigger. Close that over, pull it over just so you can see it. And then the next thing we want to do is add an AI agent tool, which is this part. So if I click add, type AI agent, AI agent, and just connect that. So I'm just going to close this chat down just now, but connect the AI agent. Now the chat model, what we want to do is just use OpenAI's chat model. Now I would recommend using GPT-4o at the time of making this video. I wouldn't use Mini. I just think it's not very good in my opinion when it comes to this stuff. So use GPT-4o. And then for the memory, just use a simple memory. It stores N8 memory. You could also do Postgres chat, which I've done actually for this one. So you could do that. Just make sure you connect the same account as before, and you can do a different context window than 5 if you want. So it basically takes your last 5 messages essentially back and forward so it remembers what you're talking about. So let's just keep it as Postgres chat memory. And the tool, what we want to add is this answering questions with vector store part. So tool, answers and questions. I've not really put anything in here. You don't need to fill it out, but I think it might make it better if you put it in. Again, if someone knows if that will make it better, just let me know. Push that up a little bit. And then next we want to do is the vector store. For us, again, we want to use the Supabase store like we've done over here. Jump back over. Just make sure the account's connected. And what we want to do is retrieve documents as a vector store for the chain tool. And then click this documents here. Just make sure you've got the right one because this is where your content and embeddings and stuff was getting saved from before. Click out of that. I just like to pull it down a bit. Pull the whole thing up again. The embeddings, use the same one as you used before. So what this is now doing is doing the reverse. So use the OpenAI account, text embeddings, and you've got that selected. And the model you want to use, which is kind of like the reasoning model here, is just the same one I would recommend. At the time of making this, just use OpenAI and use GPT-4o. So scroll down. Where are you? GPT. That latest one doesn't work for some reason, just GPT 4.0. So click that one, and then that should be good to go. Let's just double check that I got everything there. That should be it now. Once you've set that up, you will be good to go. Now, in this case, I'm not going to test it because the information will not be the same. But if you wanted to test it, just click open and then tell me about this brand / website, whatever it is, in my DB, or you can add whatever you want there. Now, the reason this won't work is because the information I scraped was just random pages for the example. So I don't think it's going to give us a good answer, but you see now it's asking, could you please provide the name of the brand or website that you're referring to in your database? That's because the information we got is just not good. So if you do get that, just continue to add more pages in, like the previous one I showed you, which was this one. You can see how detailed the responses are here. That's because the pages I gave are more relevant. The ones I chose there were literally just random ones from the top of the list when showing you the example here. So that is it for this video. I know that was very long, but if anyone knows any way of making this a lot more efficient, I would love to hear it, because this is one of the ones that I was just messing around with for a while. Usually I would find other people's templates, actually, to be honest, which a lot of people do, and I would use them. But this one I just was messing around to see if I could get something to work with the idea that I had in my head. But I know there's a lot better and more efficient ways to do this, so I'd love to hear them if you've got any ideas in the comments. That is all for this video. I appreciate you watching if you've stayed this long, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks.